Well, when I found a rundown trailer, it could be just trashed. It didn't matter, but it already had a power
Yeah.
pole. It already had a power pole. It already had a septic tank and already had a well. That's $30,000,
You took it
$40,000.
off, right?
Yeah, 30 or 40,000. And you can fix a mobile home, uh, 20 times cheaper than you can fix a house. So if you have less money, you can get into a mobile home deal for say 30 grand, and you can fix it up for like 10 grand. And then you can sell it on payments for like 90 grand on payments and hold the paper. And I've done about 100 of those now.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey, folks. Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is based in the greater Jacksonville, Florida area with a strong sales background and has done over 700 flips. Please welcome Joel Youngs. Joel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Dylan. I'm looking forward to it.
It's great. It's great to have you on here, Joel. I always tell everybody in Florida that I'm a little jealous, although I did just move out of the country myself to the Caribbean. So now I'm in a warm climate, but I've always been in either scorched earth hot or very cold Northeast, right? How long have you been in Jacksonville?
35 years.
Tell me about it. I've had so many people tell me about Miami, Fort Lauderdale. I've had people tell me about Tampa. If I was moving to Jacksonville, what's the reason to move down there?
Well, you can still speak English in Jacksonville, unlike Miami and Tampa. And Jacksonville's like a big country town. So if you ever heard about the Jaguars and they're always yelling out Duval, that's the county where Jacksonville's in. When you enter Duval County, you enter Jacksonville. When you leave Jacksonville, you leave Duval County. So Jacksonville's the largest city mile for mile in the United States. So it's a big country hick town, really.
That sounds good to me. I lived in Dallas for about a year. I lived in San Antonio for 5 years. So I definitely picked up some country habits. I want to ask you about getting into the real estate space and then also your background leading up to that. We had a good conversation yesterday where we talked about your sales background, but walk us through how you got into real estate.
Well, I had another sales company and I just got burned out and I just retired for about a year, but I didn't have really enough money to really retire because I had too big of a house and wife and kids. So I was talking to this guy that used to sell for me and he quit working for me after making $10,000 in a month. And I said, man, you're going to make $100,000 this year. He goes, yeah, I got to quit. I said, why? So I closed on 8 deals this month and I made $40,000 and I didn't have to knock on doors. He said, I sold 8 houses. And I was like, wow. And he says, I had partners and things like that. So I had to split my money, but I made $40,000. And then he went off and bought apartment complexes and became a multi-millionaire. So I went to see him for lunch and I said, hey, and he goes, look, I'll give you one house to sell. And it was one that none of his salespeople could sell. And I didn't know that. I was too naive. So I got a contract on it the first weekend. And he goes, you think it's going to go through? I said, yeah, I think so. And it did. And he goes, man, we've been trying to sell the house for 2.5 years. And I said, oh, thank God you didn't tell me that.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
So I got pure.
That was the first deal?
Yeah, very first deal. And then he gives me another house. He had like 40 houses. He gives me another house and he goes, if you can sell that one, you probably can sell this one. It was only 700 square feet and nobody could sell it. It was like $80,000 when it should have been about 50,000, but he had remodeled it. So it was nice. So I didn't know it was overpriced and too small, but a guy that was going through a divorce just needed a 1-bedroom house. And he ccame in and gave me 10,000 down. I go to my boss. I said, here's $10,000 deposit. He said, how do you get such big deposits? I said, aren't you supposed to? Because that time I thought you were supposed to put 20% down on a house to buy it, So I was asking for, 16,000 down, but I didn't know. But when he gave me 10, my boss was like, man, you're crazy on these deposits. I was like, I thought I was supposed to, being naive.
So what was the format of these deals? Were these assignable contracts? How were these deals being?
Okay, well, that was just this was my buddy that was a big time investor, and he was flipping probably 50, 100 houses a year. So he had a team of salespeople. So he taught me. So here's what I do. I have a pretty simple thing. What I do is I get them under contract. I try to find the right areas, and I look for areas that if my sister was going through a divorce and had 2 kids, she'd be safe to live in. That's how I judge my areas. So I get them under contract for, let's say, just a number, $100,000. Then what I do is I try to sell that contract for $110,000. If it doesn't sell within a period of time before my closing, which is usually 30 days, then I'll close on it. I'll use my money or hard money. It doesn't matter. And then I'll just clean it up, cut the front yard, gut the house, maybe paint the front of it, and then I'll put 10 more thousand on it, and I'll try to sell for, say, 120,000, right? And now I have some money costs, so it's not that profitable, but it's a $10,000 flip, right? And I don't try to take anybody's heads off because I get guys that buy 10 houses from me a year, so and get multiple guys like that, you can turn some houses. My best year was 47 by myself. Then if I don't sell it, I call it semi-retail, then I'll rehab it completely, and then I'll sell it for whatever market value is. And I'll try to keep it a little bit under, like if it's worth 190, I'll try to sell it for, like right now we have one that we bought for 65 or 70. We put about 65 in it, and we have a little bit of money costs there, but it's worth 230. Well, it just wasn't selling. So we dropped it down to 220. It wasn't selling. Dropped it down to 209. It wasn't selling. Dropped down to 199. Still wasn't selling. I dropped it down to 189 2 days ago, and I've had 30 calls in a day. So we got 3 contracts yesterday on it. So, and we're still at a really good margin. We're not making as much as we were, but hey, you got it. Plus this right now time, the rates
Is not the time, yeah.
Yeah, but in about a month, we would sell that house for 209 all day long because it's worth 230. I know houses, so it's worth 230 all day long. But in a month, it'll sell because the rates are going to come down over the next 3 or 4 months, and I think that it's going to open up the markets and it's going to start flooding again. And that's what Trump's good for, I think.
I want to ask you about scaling in the real estate space because there's a lot of elements to it which are very much underwriting and looking at deals, and then a lot of it is acquisition and knowing your investors, and then also meeting other investors. With your sales background, right, probably an amazing fit for that. Walk me through getting into really a rhythm where you were doing so many of these. You mentioned 47, and then scaling your business.
Well, see, at that time, I was super motivated to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, so I was motivated. And now I'm a little bit different because I'm semi-retired. My wife says semi-retarded. I'm looking for long-term cash. I make way more money by holding them. So I try to get them to where I can keep them rented, or I hold the mortgages on them. That's what I love doing, is holding the mortgages. So I've got like 6 or 7 mortgages going. And I told my wife, as soon as I get to 20, you're not working anymore. And she's like, I like to work. I said, yeah, but you can do other stuff. You can go clean my houses out.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Do you have any preference right now? It sounds like towards the long term, maybe annual leases. But did you ever have a preference towards another asset class? Short term, mid-term, multifamily.
I owned a mobile home park for 7 years. That made me a man. I went in a super nice guy. I came out a guy that carries a pistol.
Yeah,
It was a eye opener. I learned how to be never a jerk as a landlord. But I learned how to be firm, nice, but firm. So on the third day, if they don't pay, you got to give them a 3-day notice. You can't let them, especially on multifamily, because if one of them finds out you let them slide, then they all know you let them slide. So at one time, I had out of 30 units, I had 10 people that were a month and a half, 2 months behind. And it's because I let one guy slide and he told everybody. So then I realized, and then I do something that my manager hated me for doing it, but I would walk up to him on, say, a Tuesday, and I'll say, look, if you don't pound holes in the walls and you clean sweep it by Friday, I'll give you the $300 that I'm going to give the county to file the eviction. So if I give you the $300, you got to have your stuff clean swept and hand me the keys at Friday at noon. If not, at 1 o'clock, I'm giving the county $300 to file the eviction. And sometimes I'd even loan them my trailer, to move their stuff. At least they could go get a hotel. My manager's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? They haven't paid in 2 months. I said, well, it'll be another 2 months if I don't. So
that's
now
right.
I got it cleaned out and rented out in 10 days. And that was the thing. Another thing I did is I kept a big 10 list. Every house needs 10 things, like the roof, the floors, the windows, the kitchens, the plumbing, AC, electric. There's a big 10 list. There's big 10 things that cost big on a house. And if you just write your big 10 list down, just think about any 10 things that it needs. It's always going to need carpet and flooring. It's always going to need paint, but does it need windows? If that doesn't need windows, if they're newer windows, then you're good. Does it need bathrooms? Okay. Like on say a 1,500 square foot house, everything's about $3,000. AC, windows, everything's about $3,000. So if you need 10 of the 3,000, that's going to be a pretty expensive, rehab for a 1,500 square foot house, and it might be
I
4,000.
want to pivot a bit here and ask you about managing this, because you talk about so many doors. You talk about a mobile home park, right? Doing it yourself, it sounds like. Did you ever think about property management? Did you ever have experiences with property management? And then why'd you ultimately decide to self-manage?
Well, I had a manager at my park, but I'll tell you about multifamily. This is what I learned. You got to have 60 doors. That's the magical number. If you get to 60 doors, you can afford a decent manager and a decent maintenance guy. But if you have under 60 doors, you're going to have to do some of this stuff yourself. And I just never got to that. I had 40 homes in a 30-unit trailer park. So I basically had 70 doors, but my homes were all
Yeah,
for sale. I wasn't renting my homes. I was selling all those. But the
I
mobile
got
home
you.
park, during that '08 crash, I lost several million and it hurt and it was terrible. That mobile home park saved my butt, saved my house on the river, saved my wife's life.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, it saved me because it was a cash cow. So I'm looking to buy another
Yeah.
home park right now.
I
Yeah.
want to ask you about pivoting in the real estate space. Anybody that I've had on this show who's been active since, 2005, 20 years, right? They've had to pivot, whether it's going to a different asset class, whether it's a different strategy, maybe being more or less transactional, whether it's going to the lending side, right? They've had to pivot. Mobile home park, that's one pivot. What have been some other pivots that you've had to make over the years?
Well, lots, raw land lots. That it's way cheaper to buy them, but you got to know the rules. Like the 3 counties south of me, Clay County and Marion County, which is Ocala. If you have an acre or less, you have to put an ATU system in. That's an aerobatic treatment unit septic tank.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
It's about 30 grand. And what it does, it kind of chops up the stuff so it doesn't get out into the ground. If you have an acre in 1 foot, you don't have to have it, but you have to have an acre in 1 foot to not have to have it. So I learned, like buying lots, you better make sure they're, 1.1 acre. You're like, geez, that's good. Well, it's really way better than 0.9 acres. If it's, under an acre, it's a $30,000 swing with that septic tank. So I learned that, the hard way. And that taught me a little bit. I don't need
Septic is an interesting beast, right?
Well, another thing I'll tell you is, when I got divorced about 7, 8 years ago, I had to give up a lot of my rentals and all my money in my house, so, it's all,
Yeah.
all behind me. So I had to come back. How do you come back from, all that alimony and all that stuff and try to make your thing work? So I started buying the cheapest properties I could. So I started driving out of town 40, 50 miles and buying rundown trailers with land. And that's how I learned the acre thing, right? Well, when I found a rundown trailer, it could be just trashed. It didn't matter, but it already had a power
Yeah.
pole. It already had a power pole. It already had a septic tank, and it already had a well. That's 30,
You took it
$40,000.
off, right?
Yeah, 30 or 40,000. And you can fix a mobile home, uh, 20 times cheaper than you can fix a house. So if you have less money, you can get into a mobile home deal for, say, 30 grand, and you can fix it up for like 10 grand, and then you can sell it on payments for like 90 grand on payments and hold the paper. And I've done about 100 of those now.
Let me ask you about holding the paper. I actually had a deal that was very similar to this. It didn't end up going through. And I want to ask you about this process specifically. So when you're holding the note, right, you're really, of course, depending on this person to make the payment. So you are kind of stretching out the return over a length of time. And then if they do default, it comes back to you. So you do have to kind of keep a longer term perspective of these deals. When you are in the process of the acquisition, do you already have that in mind? Like, hey, I'm going to have to hold the note on this. Or are you thinking during the
Well,
acquisition of that deal, I'd ideally like to find a cash buyer for it?
Well, see, so that's some learning things that I had to learn too. The banks, however, they will take and finance a mobile home that's an 88 or 90, but it's got to be in mint condition. They would much rather finance a home that's built, a mobile home built in, say, 2010 or 15. Okay. So if you're buying an older mobile home, you better know that you're going to be holding the paper on it. You're not going to, the banks won't, they don't want to mess with it. They don't want to touch it. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless the person's like stellar credit. Well, generally people who buy that aren't stellar credit either. So that's that. So when I
Right.
buy a single family home, if it's a wooden structure, I have to look at how, when I go to get it appraised with the bank, they're going to bring an inspector in there and that guy's going to pick it apart. So if it's a wooden house, I got to make sure that how's the bottom of it? What's the turn? I'm going to pay an inspector myself. I'll inspect it because I've done like 700 or 800 deals, but those inspectors find everything, and it just,
Yeah, absolutely.
so when you're doing,
Tears a deal apart.
right. So if you're going to do a cash deal, like if it's cash, it's not a big deal. But if they're going to finance it through a bank, especially FHA or VA, you better make sure it's a solid property, and you better be prepared to fix everything, because if it's going to go FHA, can't be one stick of rotten wood. Everything's got to be fixed. The windows have to have screens, and it's a tougher deal.
Joel, we are coming up on time here. Where can folks go if maybe they've got a deal they'd like you to look at? Maybe they're looking at a mobile home park deal, or maybe they're in the greater Jacksonville area and they'd like to reach out to you.
Yeah. My email is young with an S, and then production with an S @gmail. So it's youngsproductions@gmail.com. And it's, you can send me a deal, or if they need help. I have a rule that I do deal. If somebody wants me to train them, it's a 5-deal rule. Okay. So here's how it works. I'll help them find deals. I'll teach them how to find them. Then they have to find them, and then I'll help them fund it. I'll help them fix it, and I'll help them flip it. And they got to split 5 deals with me. Now, why? And then they don't have to ever pay me again. And it's 50-50 split. So, why I do that way is, after 3 deals, they aren't going to need me anymore. Okay. They're probably going to want me, but they don't need me anymore. So the next 2 deals are like, oh man, I did most of the stuff and I got to give you half. That was the deal. And we write up an agreement, and that's just what we do. And then I've trained a bunch of people like that. And generally they'll get a deal or 2 or 3, and sometimes it's just too hard for some people. It's hard. Finding them is the whole thing. You find them, the money will come.
I completely agree. I actually said this on another podcast this week, that if you're worried about, well, how am I going to get the mentorship? How am I going to make sure that I can take this from the cradle to the grave? Once you find the deal, typically you get all the help that you need because someone wants a part of that deal if it's a good deal.
Especially if
Joel, thank you so much for coming on the show here today.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good day in Dominican Republic, right?
That's right. Santo Domingo. Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.